It's a time! Package from China time? What the heck happened to my box? Let me know in the comments, does this also happen with you? Hey, welcome back to the channel. It's awesome that you're tuning in. In this video we are going to be doing a chit chat regarding the new Gamebox PC from AliExpress. I think it's safe to say that we have all kinds of new mini PC solutions or newer generations. But what's actually the idea? That we have like a plug and play kit that is ready to go. However, there are very creative with old mainboards and some really old shenanigans. However, this is going to be something different, or at least I'm hoping for that. So this is a ready to go package like I mentioned before. So this time we're getting the Xbox 360 controllers, or at least that's the one I ordered, because I just wanted to see how good is the quality of the controllers. It comes with everything like a power supply. They're using these, I think it was previously 12 volt 5 amps over there, and then an HDMI cable. Ooh, the adapter, okay. And the PC itself. It seems to be everything has been surviving in the inside. But one of the things I was really curious about is the system itself. So I've been complaining too much about the toilet paper manuals, so now we don't getting any, let's say, toilet paper manuals, we're just getting a sticker with a QR code if you have any problems, if you want to switch the system, have no sounds and everything else. However, this is the game system, or at least the mini PC itself, and let's do a quick unboxing and let's see if this is going to be any good. I was really intrigued by the case look. And on the picture it looks kind of cool. It looks like these mini PCs that I reviewed before, but this case is completely 3D printed to a point. I think it looks kind of cool with the purple, pink, blue and whatsoever. You can see the different layers. However, the case feels quite sturdy, and even with this massive bash in the box, there was nothing going on when it comes to damage. Over here we're having different connections: input for the 12 volt I've shown you before, HDMI, an old school output, just two USB ports, normal and fast ones, RJ45. It's going to be interesting if you're going to be doing some updating, having here the, I think this is a speaker and the microphone. Oh man, but there are no USB at the front. That would be like some convenient thing, because you can plug in the controllers and on and off switch over there, and there is nothing much to see. I have no idea why this sticker is on. What is going on with that? Oh, 500, I'm guessing this is the internal hard disk. But how about the controllers? So when it comes to Xbox 360 controls, the main reason I just ordered, because I just wanted to see, is this any good? Because the PlayStation 2 controllers they are giving you most of the time with these game boxes are completely rubbish. So when it comes to the feel, so it's not like 100% legit like the Xbox 360 controller, but the overall feel of the analog sticks and so are quite nice. So when it comes to these wired controllers, and I don't know if they have like one with wireless connection. However, there are different controllers you can actually use, like a Bato, if you want to do something of a different configuration, but you need to buy them separately. Where we can buy all kinds of N100 cheap solutions, i5s used, is this thing actually going to be something good to pick up? Because even if it's a ready to go plug and play with everything like a controller and then 500GB hard disk in the inside, we can just build these things ourselves. However, of course, not everybody has a 3D printed, but it's just going to be a fun thing to see what are we getting when it comes to, let's say, all of the parts and how did he actually make it. So far I can see it in passive cooling, and we can have an option to slide out the hard drive over here. Let's see what they are using, because sometimes they're like prehistoric old. The Toshiba over here, so it's not like this very old one that I've been seeing with previous ones, but they're not, I think they're not even brand new discs, they're just using these second-hand ones. But the way how this slides in, that is actually cool. Okay, so looking into the case, I don't find any different way to open it up. So the thing that we're going to be needing to do is removing the plastic nuts with the screws. We can slide out this hard drive, and then we can slide out the main board itself. That is how you're going to be doing some maintenance on this. An interesting but strange way. But the reason I wanted to do this is to see what are we having when it comes to, let's say, the configuration and upgrade possibilities. So it does come with an active fan with a massive metal block underneath. So this is just a PWM, so I just think it's going to be adjustable RPM. So the unfortunate part is that we're only having one slot when it comes to, let's say, the memory. And the memory we're going to be having over here is an 8 GB, so it's a little bit bigger or more at least than the previous models. We can replace the battery if this is going to be dead. It can give you a little bit of problems for upgradability. So what is interesting that they're saying something about switching to Windows, but storage capacity wise there is only a hard drive attached to it and there is no NVMe, so I'm guessing we cannot switch to Windows, but we can upgrade it. So if you're going to be slapping an NVMe on there, we can also do it for Batocera. So let's say if you're going to be making a backup through software with this drive, you can flash it to a 500 GB or bigger NVMe and can use it there. And there's also an option for an M2 over there, but that's it. This is the only thing that we can do. There is no, I think there is no like built-in Wi-Fi, or at least that I can see. And when it comes to powering, it's kind of interesting that we do have a 4-pin over here, but beside that there is no way of, let's say, powering on beside that. So this is the main board, and it seems to be looking like a very new one. But the biggest problem I'm having with this is that we're only having one slot, and dual slot will be so much, let's say, of a big boost at least. But let's do everything. Let's do a little bit of an assembly again, put everything back, and let's see what we can do when it comes to the performance-wise. Oh, before I'm just going to be forgetting to mention this, so when you're going to be looking at the way how it is going to be active cooling, or at least you can see the fan, or at least the inlet is over here, but doesn't correspond over there with the fan. Yeah, because the fan is actually at the bottom over there where the drive is. So when it comes to configuration, they completely messed it up when it comes to that. And yep, Batocera Linux, that is actually what it's going to be using on this mini PC. And you can just make these things yourself, fairly cheap or sometimes even for free. But that's going to be something for a different video. But let's see what we're getting when it comes to this overall product. And is it really worth buying? Because I paid around like $150 freaking dollars with a sale and a lot of coupons. But let's see, what do we have on the hard drive? Or at this point, nothing, because it seems to be my controller is not working like it should be. And this is why I said I want to have front USB ports. Let's see what's going on over there. Does this help? I have the feeling that my controller ports are just dead or some kind. Use a different port. Oh, there we go. Finally, it has been connected. The N100, or at least that was the advertising, and later on we're going to be checking out the specs of the CPU. See what we're getting first of all of the menu itself. So all kinds of cool stuff can be played with this, like when it comes to MAME. With MAME it's quite interesting because if you want to play Killer Instinct, we can actually do that with a mini PC like this. So Atari, that can be played on many game sticks, so you don't need to buy an expensive PC like this, but it's just an absolutely great add-on. I think one of the things we're going to be focusing on mainly is going to be GameCube, PlayStation 1, 2, and also doing some upscaling with the resolution, because that is going to be one of the interesting parts when using Batocera and a modern PC like an N100 at least. That's what we're going to be expecting today. So let's see, we're having N64, that performance is going to be so significant better than we have seen before. And of course we're having all kinds of different systems, but newer stuff will not run. Think about Xbox 360. But let's get into the menu by pressing start, and let's see what for kind of specs what are we actually going to be working with. We are running Batocera version 40 at this moment. So let's go to the system settings, and I'm keep pressing the wrong button because it is switching out the A and B all the time with different systems. Oh, annoying. But information, here we're going to be finding the details. So indeed we are running on a 400 or at least like 500 gigabyte device. Not everything has been filled to the maximum, so that is great, particularly these two partitions if you want to update the system. We're running the N100 over here. That is a CPU core with 4 or quad core, 3400 megahertz. So I know it's running 30 Celsius now, so it's not absolutely bad itself. We have enough RAM of the 8 GB. Unfortunately, it's not dual channel. And moving on, we're having over here some Intel graphics. Yep, with the Mesa Intel graphics. And it's going to be giving us quite some overall nice performance. But of course, it's not like a dedicated NVIDIA GPU. But let's start off with some arcade. And the reason why, because this is one of my favorite systems and one of the systems where we can actually play all kinds of games in combination with the Killer Instinct and Tekken games, the stuff that we couldn't play before. But yeah, there were no pictures. It's not with every single system, but a lot of them are completely incomplete. This one doesn't even have like the previews. So it's absolutely one hot mess when it comes to the image itself. And let's move to MAME and let's try out some games. The unfortunate part is if you're going to be looking into the games itself, you can see they don't boot up. And yeah, the main problem is that the emulator didn't have the right configuration. By holding A, we can go to advanced options. And here we can actually choose out different emulators and mess around with it. For example, having over here the MAME 78 Plus, and I think we can manage to get it working. But let's try that emulator and mess around with it if you want to. And here you can see it boots up without any problem, even in the right aspect ratio. Some of the emulators will have problems with the audio, but there's again a little bit of a tweaking going on. Everything of the controls have been set, so you don't need to do anything about that. They are implementing a scanline filter, but these games will run just fine without any problem most of the time. And again, if you just want to use some MAME games, you don't need to get a more powerful or N100. You can use very old PCs for this, so that is something I just want to give as an extra information, so you don't need to spend a lot of money. Well, what is kind of cool that I've been playing this game even in my childhood, so this is such a cool game. Oh yeah. But when you're going to be looking into some emulators, it's going to be one hot mess. For example, having the Windows emulator, nothing seems to be working when it comes to this. We can reboot it fairly easy, but yeah, this is one of those many problems. Let's boot up another game, like some Turtle Revenge. Let's see if this is going to be booting up or if we're going to be having the same errors over and over again. Yeah, so if you're going to be wanting to buy something like this and just have a ready to go kit, forget about it, because you will have a lot of problems that you need to be solving throughout going to the list. And loading times can be very long. The N100 is a capable chip and even capable to run some games of the Windows platform. I think they're using the Proton, or this is a different configuration. However, this may be a fun overall idea to look into it, and we'll see what we can actually do more in the end, because this is absolutely awesome. We have many games to emulate. We can also just play Windows games and newer generation games like the Turtle game. Such a classic game. I've been playing so much through my Steam and other systems. Okay, so when we have all kinds of cool emulation of modern systems, let's get into some old school stuff with some PC Engine. So this is a system that can be played on some old school dual core, let's say PC, so you don't need to have like an N100. But I think if you're having an N100, we have the option to play all kinds of cool stuff. But you can see this runs perfectly. What I love about it is that they implemented the bezels, but you can shut them down in the menu if you want to. But press select and start, it will bring you back to the main menu. And in here we can do the same thing, going to advanced options for a certain game or platform, choose the emulator and go start messing with stuff. And in here we can even shut down the decoration and all kinds of stuff if you want to. So with the N64 we also have the option to do a little bit of upscaling, where some people don't really give a crap about it. I think it's a very cool extra feature with the PCs, because the N64 games don't really age that well, where they look absolutely blurry and horrible on native resolution. So playing it through the emulator looks slightly better, but if you're going to be using an upscaling, man oh man, the experience is going to be bringing this to another level. I just wanted to do a little bit of upscaling of 720p, and the main reason is just wanted to see how far we can push it. Take note that the GPU of the Intels are not my favorite ones on board, with a simple reason, because these things do struggle. We can also lower to 480p, and also depending what kind of game you want to play, but some games are very easy to emulate and you can just even maybe get a little bit of a higher resolution going on. But even the frames per second are hitting 25, 23, you can just decide for yourself if this is going to be playable enough. And from that perspective, you can just actually go into the emulator, what I've shown you before, and mess around with it. Pressing select and start will bring you back to the menu, holding the A. I said I'm holding the A, there we go. Advanced game options, and from here we can choose if you want to use a different emulator. You can just go to the all the kind of options, or so many options you can choose, but with some different options you can just mess around and saying, hey, I want to have like a little bit of an, let's say, different rendering resolution. So at that point we can just have better overall frames per second, but it depends what you personally prefer. So let's try Cruising USA. Man, I love this game. And of course, there's also a great test because a lot of these game systems, or at least the cheap ones, are struggling. But with the mini PC, we can even do a little bit of upscaling with this particular model due of the GPU and the newer chip they were having. So having a 40p rendering resolution, and you can just actually see that we're having 30 frames per second. So far, no problems. Sometimes when I'm saying it a little bit too out loud, it just starts stuttering automatically. But the point is that you can see we're having a little bit of play with it, and 40p is just fine. It looks great. But if you want to get into higher overall, say, options, what you need to do is find a mini PC that has maybe an AMD Ryzen chip with a more powerful GPU combination or built-in, or maybe have a different configuration, or an old PC with a GPU in the inside to have overall better performance. But that's it. So N64 is playable, so that's kind of cool. So next up, the GameCube, another great system with very nice titles. However, if you want to play some games with this, we can do a little bit of an upscaling. However, I've been testing it with 1080p, but this is way too much. And also depending what kind of game. If you have two-dimensional games, you can do a crazy upscaling where we're having like two three-dimensional games. We have, let's say, less overall performance when you're going to be upscaling to higher stuff. Nevertheless, the performance also in native is just great, what you can just actually see over here. I just wanted to see how far we can do it. The Nintendo DS is another system that runs great on this. It's a very interesting and strange overall experience. What you can do, now we do have the bezel implemented, but we can switch the displays if you want to. And if you're going to be removing the decoration, or at least the side with the overall handheld decoration, what looks kind of interesting and weird at the same time. We can even have a full screen where we can switch between them. But this is a system that can also be played on low-rand, let's say low-rand chips. But still, I think Sonic Rush was one of those games that I really enjoyed, despite I'm more like a Sonic Classic fan, particularly with the 16-bit era. But it was kind of trippy playing it on two displays at the same time. But moving to the 3DS, yeah, it just completely froze. And you know, this is just the reason why I don't like playing these DS games in general on a device like this. So let's reboot and let's forget about it. The PlayStation image list is absolutely garbage, and you know, it's kind of interesting they did this because PlayStation 1 does have a lot of potential. So we've been testing a lot of different, let's say, PlayStation 1 games, and you can just see with even older CPU, GPU combination, we had the option to do a little bit of an upscaling, sometimes even to 4K. That looks amazing. However, with this, we do have a lot of cool possibilities here, but PlayStation 2 is going to be maybe a more interesting system to check out. So PlayStation 1 is great, even higher upscaled resolution is possible with many different games. But with PlayStation 2, we do have some great performance. Native resolution, we can play a lot of games. I would maybe always say like all the games, but if you're going to be having a little bit of an upscaling going on, depending on what kind of game. So for example, having the game over here, the Contra game, we can even do a little upscaling for 80p or maybe even 1080p, 720p. But again, it's going to be a hit or miss with some of these systems. So that's absolutely awesome. So we can finally play some PlayStation 2 on emulation on a quite cheap box. And I think that's one of the benefits of, let's say, the performance of many, let's say, newer generation of chipsets. Technology is becoming cheaper and faster, and that's one of the cool things. So I do wonder if you have like cheap PCs in the future that can also play PlayStation 3. Regarding PlayStation 3, let's get into it because this is just going to be a completely different story. Woo! Boss battle! Yeah! Depending on the game, but with PlayStation 3 we do have these ridiculous long loading times. To a point you can get yourself something to drink, some popcorn, and maybe when you're getting back it's going to be ready. And even if you're getting some games to be run, two-dimensional, three-dimensional, doesn't matter. I've been testing it on the device, and the N100 is in my opinion not powerful enough, and the overall experience is just not like you want to experience. So for PlayStation 3 emulation you need to have like a way more powerful chip, or just an old i7 or some kind that has the possibility to just run this. Because I've been reading through, let's say, the comment, people getting older i5s and just have great overall performance with this. So the N100 is not going to be a great deal. Even if I'm going to be speaking all the freaking time, you can see this thing is still not ready loading. So when it comes to PlayStation Portable, this is going to be a completely different story, but also a very positive one, because now we do have some basic games that can be played on even game boxes, you name it, like Jetpack, Joyride. However, what we can do is getting into some very cool overall emulation performance and do a little bit of an upscaling. So if you want to have a kill zone on high resolution, you can go with the advanced game option by holding A. Choose your emulator. Normally I've been set to auto. This course really forcing it into a certain emulator. You can also tweak with this, the same story like with the arcade I told you. And here rendering resolution you can just tweak there. So you can see we can have all kinds of crazy stuff going on with 10 times. I would just mess around per game, just see how far we can push it. For example, if you have the option to 4K rendering resolution. But seeing the game in the rendering resolution 4K, this looks so much better. You can put it on 2K if a certain game doesn't run like it should be. But again, I think it's just a crazy overall performance if you're going to be looking what we can just do. And again, take note, there are like so simple games that don't need the 4K rendering resolution at all. We can just even go to the 10 times if you want to, like in Jetpack, Joyride. But in this way we can actually go into the games and just experience them like you have never done before. But so PlayStation 3 is no-go. We do have like a lot of cool stuff we can actually play when it comes to the PlayStation part over there. We didn't test out the Atomic Wave. We're going to be using this on just the native resolution. And also here we can do a little bit of tweaking with upscaling. Yep, that is even possible with this. So let's see how it runs on native first. And Demolish Fist, I find it's such a weird overall experience where I'm just a big fan of the Street of Rage final fight, you know, the games like those 3-dimensional games never really touched my wicked soul when it comes to playing some video games. But let's move to the Flycast emulator and upscale it to the 920. And you can just see that it struggles big time. So even if you can do some upscaling with Atomic Wave, you're still limited to the onboard CPU, GPU. We can mess around with different emulators. Getting through the game, now finally stop stuttering when I was actually dying. But you need to do a little bit tweaking with per game, and I think maybe with some 480p. But yeah, I'm just going to be honest, if you're going to be playing this on native resolution, it looks great when it comes to that. But if you just want to play some 16-bit games, man, there are so many different systems out there that can exactly do the same thing. It's just a great addition, and if they've been setting up the right, let's say, list with the right picture and everything, you do have like an overall cool, great overall experience. The controller is quite nice, and they're using a higher quality because also there in China we have different quality controllers of the Xbox 360, and this is one of the better ones. So one of those very cool experiences I had now with this mini PC. This is such a very cool, let's say, overview of different systems. But of course with the N100, where it's a low budget device, we can still not play everything, but we can just play all kinds of different stuff. So this is what you can expect when having an N100 device like this. We have seen many different, let's say, systems now, and I can tell you though we've been not even testing everything out. So what we're going to be doing is jumping back into the bandwagon and testing out some Sega Saturn to see what we can actually do with that, because there are so many cool devices out there. But when it comes to the Sega Saturn, we do have some amazing performance, even with 720p rendering resolution. For me, the rendering resolution for the Sega Saturn is very important because, let's be honest, these are like the generation of games that didn't really age well, like the N64. But the performance is great, and maybe we can even do it on 1080p rendering resolution, but it is also depending on what kind of game you actually want to play. So Sega Dreamcast is one of my favorite systems, and also here with the Redream emulator, we can also try it Flycast if you want to, but Redream we can do a little bit of upscaling too. Now having it set to 1080p. I think even with two-dimensional games, we can even set it to, let's say, high resolution like 2K, 4K, and stuff like that. Okay, I'm all figuring out how to freaking play this game. So Crazy Taxi is such a legendary game, and it looks amazing. We can also shut down the bezels if you don't like them. And there are even emulators that have like a widescreen hack that you can enable. So there are many different ways. Of course, we do have some limitations. This has to do with the GPU that's inside of this thing. But the N100 is capable of running a lot of Sega Dreamcast without any problem whatsoever. But what is kind of cool, that we can play the Sega Naomi system on even the 1080p resolution. And also here we can do a little bit on upscaling more, but if you're going to be doing this, I did notice that it stutters a lot, even with the simple games, or at least like the two-dimensional games. So at that point, we do have limitations, particularly when it comes to the GPU again. But this is another great system where we can play all kinds of games in higher resolutions. So this is just amazing. And like I mentioned also before, is that how cool would it be to see this, what happens over a couple of years, where these mini PCs are getting even more power, CPU but also GPU wise, and we can play everything on freaking 4K resolution. But at this point, this is what we're getting when it comes to the N100 chip. But we can play so many different systems when it comes to this mini PC. The question remains, what do you want to see when it comes to playing on a mini PC and Batocera, where we have all kinds of different machines now that can play 8-bit, 16-bit, old school PCs, you name it. I've been testing a couple of them in this video and they work great. Also, if you're going to be into the handhelds itself, I think N64 is going to be the more interesting part, because a lot of cheap boxes couldn't run this at all, or at least at decent speed. Now we can even do a little bit of upscaling. So we have all kinds of options, but with more modern stuff, there we're going to be finding the limitations. But when you're going to be looking into this kit, and is it really ready to go and plug and play? So at this point, I see a lot of problems when it comes to the software part, but also the hardware part. I must give them some extra kudos for the PC they're making, or the case. It's 3D printed and it looks kind of cool. But however, yeah, the 500 gigabyte is not enough storage. They should start with like the 2 TB stuff that we've seen before. We can just switch out a hard drive, because this is just an N100 mini PC. You can just build these things actually for very cheap if you want to, but the kit plug and play is not okay. The controllers, I do love it, but the overall quality, I've been seeing this before, but also there are different qualities and they did a great job with that. Let me know in the comments which platform do you love to play on these devices. Thank you all for watching, and just would be great to see you in the next video.